We're live. You see people. Why are people talking about Gene Funk?
I have no idea what that is.
It looks like it may be a Cyberpunk 5e.
Huh. It's true. I don't roll ones. I never roll a one.
It just puts another 20 on the face of the die. That
exactly. I actually paint over all of my dice.
Although that might be hard to get away with. You probably want to put like another digit after the one.
No. They said they weren't. They couldn't hear me. 19. They couldn't hear me. You know why?
Apparently not.
Let me tell you why you couldn't hear me.
Oh.
So I'm going to tell you why you couldn't hear me, because computers suck. Okay, let me tell you, computers suck. Can everyone hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I mean, I can, but I don't know if they can.
I know.
Just go without Steve.
Can you not hear? You must be able to hear. It says I'm coming through right now. There we are.
They can hear you now.
So it's like I installed the standard NVIDIA update, and not only does it change my drivers, it changed my defaults. Like, why are you changing my defaults?
Why would it change your defaults?
I don't know.
I hate when it does that.
I'm like, come on, really? Like, haha, we're stealing everything from you. So, and no, it literally did this yesterday, because when I was playing one of my games, I was like, I can't hear you. I'm like, I know why. And sure enough, did it again.
Usually happens to me at least once every stream or two. I'll go for my first minute or two of introduction, and then I look at chat, and it's just silence. We can't.
Well, I should have been looking at the audio capture, because I was like, I should have been
always
looking.
Helps, because you can see if it's going up and down or not.
Though I've had times where I can see it going up and down to my voice, and it still doesn't go through. I don't even know how it works sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's so insane. Oh no, Ned, you have more subscribers than Paizo.
I have passed the Paizo YouTube channel.
You did it.
I'm actually in worked with Jason to acquire the company.
Yeah, right.
Is that so?
Okay. that would be funny.
It's just my inheritance from my dad.
Okay.
Because everyone thinks that I'm his son.
Yeah, but Jason doesn't have anywhere near that amount of power.
He said, no, Eric. Oh, actually, Jason. Oh, you do look like Jason.
That's what everyone says, yeah.
Oh my God. Except you're like 1/10 his size. And height.
No, that's been a running gag for like the last 2 years, is everyone saying how much I look like Jason.
You do. You look like a young Jason, except he's
like if an alchemist makes a familiar that's like a homunculus that's like much smaller than them, but is like kind of in their own shape. Maybe that's what Jason did.
I'll put it in the Discord for you to check out later. But I copied one of Jason's pictures on Twitter, and the resemblance is.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So, yeah.
So once again, a few things. First of all, you can join us now. I added the new join button. And we have Cheese of Ages, who I think was our very first member ever.
Oh, man,
and you get that cool little color. You get a little icon next to you. You can do little cool emojis. And I set it up on our Discord. You have to do it on your Discord too. You have to enable integrations, and then you will get a special. You get just special stuff. You're special. At least for us, you're special.
It's like Twitch when you enable Twitch or any of those other things.
Or Patreon or anything like that.
Yeah, then you can get some extra pennies.
Yep. And then once again, if you have any questions, super chats get answered right away. And I even have these cool overlays. So if someone does a super chat, you can see the overlay appear right over Nonat's face.
Oh, that's perfect. Fancy. Good. No one wants to look at that anyway.
That's right. No one wants to look at that. We actually will have a regular show today. Normally a regular show is 3, 5, 7 hours, but today will probably just be 1 because we got things we have to do today. But we'll jump into it pretty quick. And is playing a broken game of D&D or Pathfinder fun? And the reason for this is that we talked about this a lot last week, but I was thinking about this a lot because I have played a lot of video games that let me back up with my caveat is that I've played a lot of video games that if you play a video game that's extremely well balanced, it's actually very, very boring. And I've seen this also in, I'd say, D&D 4th edition was incredible. The first version was so well balanced and very similar for all the characters. And it was designed almost too well that it was considered just incredibly boring. And everyone was the same. And then you have something like D&D 1st edition, which... why is it that D&D, which was insanely, ridiculously broken in hundreds of ways, but beloved and became a phenomenon? And I think because there was a method to the madness. Like, it's broken, but it's broken in such a way that it's almost part of the gameplay. Like, the brokenness became part of the game, and the brokenness made sense in the sense that, like, yeah, wizards were terrible, but they got insanely powerful later, and fighters were really good, but then they got weak later. So yeah, it's broken, but there was an elegance to having the game broken, and almost having the game broken was a rule unto itself.
So in chat, there was a request that we explain what we mean by broken game.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a good idea.
Imbalance.
Sorry.
Just like Derek said last week, the definition of certain terms, they're kind of different between different people. So when we're talking about broken, we mean so incredibly imbalanced or with some kind of actual glitch or flaw in the game that you can do something that is just incredibly overpowered and just kind of instant win, or maybe even make things that are incredibly underpowered and will underperform by a massive amounts. And sometimes both.
I was gonna say, even outside the confines of the system, individual tables and their homebrew especially can create a very broken campaign in that way.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
I've got stories that'll come up today.
What we mean by broken.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is when Steven talked about broken and balanced, I think that he was also sort of conflating in a second point. He made a really good point, but he conflated in symmetrical for balanced. And there that is a nuance that I think we should tease out here, because sometimes I think StarCraft is used as a good example by people where it was a very popular game. It was very balanced, but it was very asymmetrical. And the different races that you could play in StarCraft were like not even remotely close to similar in how like good they were at certain aspects. But they managed to balance it well enough that it was, you know, it would have top tier tournament play and was very engaging. And I think that when Steven was saying that sometimes a balanced game can be boring, what that is getting at is a very symmetrical unbalanced game can be boring, because then it's just like, oh, well, you know, it's the same. Everything is very similar or the same and is doing the same things. Whereas a sort of, as a game designer, you're hoping to make something that is very asymmetrical with a lot of differences, but is as balanced as possible so it's not broken. And the question is, like, where do you sacrifice in one of those aspects to get to the other? And did you make it too symmetrical to avoid being imbalanced, and so on? I think that's going to be a big thing we have to figure out in this episode.
And part of what makes overall game design, especially for a TTRPG, so difficult is asymmetrical balance does not mean everyone does the same amount of damage. It doesn't mean everyone has the same kind of attack. So you need to take into account the options, the variability of different abilities. Some classes may have more options. Others, like the fighter, are more straightforward, but they're better at what they do. All contributes to the balance of everything, which it's just impossible to keep everything in mind at all times.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to mention, and which I find interesting, is that, I mean, it's no surprise. I know some people, I saw someone argue with me last time saying, D&D 4th edition was based off MMOs, and people are like, no, it wasn't. I heard stuff. I'm like, trust me, I I've had many meetings with Chris Perkins and the people who wrote it. It was based off MMOs for a fact. And the main reason they did it is that they saw computers as their future. So they made fourth edition very logical and very systematic. So it would be very simple. And remember, this is the days of Baldur's Gate, like at its absolute height. Like, I don't know if people are old enough to remember, but like Baldur's Gate 25 years ago was gargantuan, and Neverwinter Nights was gargantuan. And, you know, this was a big part of D&D. And so they were trying to think of, okay, when the next Baldur's Gate comes out, we want to make it really good and easy so we can convert this to computers. So fourth edition was made. And the thing with fourth edition is that every single class played exactly the same way a video game does. So even though, like, if you did League of Legends or World of Warcraft, everyone has X amount. Like, think about League of Legends. Everyone has the same number of abilities, but yet all the characters play very differently. Yet in a role-playing game, if you give everyone the same number of abilities, like, it's my dog who wants to come in, is dailies, what was it, dailies, encounters, and at will actions, it felt terrible because every class felt exactly the same, even though their actions were totally different, and people hated that aspect. So why did it work so well with a video game? It still does, but it works so poorly with a RPG like D&D or Pathfinder. Let me let my dog in before she knocks down the door.
There's a few reasons for that, but first of all, I don't want to completely accept the notion that all the classes felt exactly the same in 4E. There was definitely some elements of sameness because the progression was so tight, and it was always the same.
I'm saying what critics said,
like,
by the way.
If you were like a defender and you could like make people attack you or something like that, it was pretty different versus like a controller, or the different roles that they had. They felt different from each other in play, but in growth and just the meta of your character, it felt very similar. And I think or why don't you go, Ned?
I was gonna say, I think the issue with uniformity in a tabletop setting is because of that imagination, that role play. It's so open-ended as a medium that rules are inherently confining. Balance is inherently confining. And the reason that works well for a video game is a video game has to be confined. A video game cannot go on to infinity. It cannot have limitless options. But in D&D or Pathfinder or whatever you're playing, like, at any point you can say, yeah, I'm going to climb that tree, try to jump to the other tree, try to maybe tie a rope. You can do anything. And you can't make enough rules to balance around the freedom of choice. Whereas in video games, there's only so many buttons on the controller. There's only so many things you can do. So it's much easier and more acceptable as a player to experience the limited rules, the limited controls, and everything.
So what I was going to say is actually parallel to what you're saying. So they're very complementary.
Okay.
I think that the strength of tabletop RPGs that are even more asymmetrical than 4E is that each player has a certain amount of tolerance for particular kinds of play styles. For example, when I was playing in 3.5, I liked playing the Archivist class. Now, the Archivist class is a class that many players who do not want to spend a huge amount of actual time in their real life archiving would despise. Because what you need to do with this class is you need to research weird domains that exist in strange sources. In real life, you're almost LARPing an archivist and be like, oh, in the rainbow domain, prismatic spray was in there. So you wind up picking up spells, and you can add them as soon as you find a domain that had them into your list. And so it was like very effective for someone who wanted to do a huge amount of archiving. On the other hand, some people are like, I want to play a fighter because I just want to swing my weapon. This is outrageous. I would never play this. And for me, I would never play a 3.5 fighter as my character and just swing my weapon because that's not enough choices and stuff. But what I'm getting at, though, is in 4E, the characters' play styles felt different, like in play, because you're defending versus controlling or striking. But the progression and how you build it is always, I have this many dailies, I have this many encounters, I have this many, I will. And so if that's not right for you because it's too much or not enough of like stuff or how it's built, then you're stuck because that's what every character is. Whereas in 3.5, I could play an archivist, and my friend who does not want to look up any spells, let alone research domains, can play a fighter and just constantly just swing the sword. Mm-hmm. And so the variety of playstyles and the variety of commitment of what types of things you have to put into it, I think that parallels with what you were saying, Nona, in terms of the strength of a tabletop RPG.
Yeah. Now, the inherent issue with the balance of 3.5 and Pathfinder First Edition to some extent is those more in-depth classes often were more powerful in a way to reward you jumping through more hoops, and that could lead to some feels bad moments. If a spellcaster needs to go through more steps to get access to their spells, maybe they should be more powerful than a wizard. But once you've done those steps and you're just stronger than the wizard, you've got some real issues in the actual practice versus just the theory.
Oh yeah, and if you didn't know as many domains as I did or whatever, and you just played it from the beginning, it was actually weak. But it was potentially considered. It was like in Heroes of Horror. It was potentially considered maybe the strongest class in all of 3.5.
Wow.
If you did all of the things that you could do, because it could essentially, you would find a domain that would give you almost every spell.
Wow.
Eventually, right? Because there were a lot of domains.
So I wanted to mention back to the main topic, because we talked a little bit about what broken is and how I sort of define broken. But we said, is playing a broken game of D&D or Pathfinder more fun, or fun in general? And
yes,
I'm going to say the answer, at least for me, is strangely yes. And I'm going to tell you why. I'll give two examples. The first example is back when I was a player and I was playing First Edition. And back then, Seth was a super, super duper strict GM, and he made us roll all of our characters in front of him. And I think we just rolled 3 dice. So it wasn't even 4. Take out the worst.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Yes. Yes.
Like, oh, well.
So I got a strength of 4.
Oh. Didn't let you re-roll at all?
No, I didn't. I kept going, but then I had like an intelligence. It was like a 16 or 17. So I'm like, I guess I'm a wizard. Right? So I remember that strength of 4. Do you know what the D&D First Edition with a strength of 4 is? You can't even. It was like you can't even pick up like you can't wear anything. Like it's ridiculous how little you could do. So and then I rolled my hit points. 1 hit point. I'm like,
and in those days there wasn't an unconscious for players who didn't play back then.
Yeah,
that means if Steven got hit by anything, he was dead.
There's no con, nothing. It was 1 hit point.
It was just 1, and then he was dead.
So I'm like, oh man. And but here's the thing: D&D had a very vast system of having cohorts and helpers, and you can get a party. Like people say, oh, party. A party was like 30 people. Like you can get, and it was expected to have a huge number of characters. So first thing I did was get some money, and I got 4 cohorts that would surround me at all times, and they would carry my stuff and act as human shields. And it worked. It worked very well. In fact, I leveled up, and then I had 2 hit points.
You rolled another one. Oh no!
And I'm like, oh, now I got 2 hit points because I rolled another one. And I'm like, but you know what? I couldn't tell you about any of these other characters, but I could tell you all about this character and how, through the cohort system, they started getting torchbearers. I was in the center and had this ring of protectors around me at all times that would go through the dungeons, and it worked amazing. And I still remember that character to this day. And that character was horribly broken, but not broken in a good way, broken in a terrible way. And it was awesome. It was fantastic. And then I had the other one. It's this Chris Beamer, who, when I played Age of Worms, we also rolled back then. We didn't do choicing. And he just kept rolling until he got a monk in 3.5 that had, like, everything was above a 15. Okay, I mean, he had an insanely good build. And it was just the win more button. And then that's actually where point builds sort of came out around the same time. And I said to everyone, okay, we're redoing your characters with point builds. And he said, I can do anything with my character. My character is going to be great no matter what. I'm like, fine, then do a point build. He goes, fine. Oof. When every stat you have is over 15 and you got to do a point build, boy, that character got really gimped real quick. But you know what? It made for a much better game. And ever since then, I actually have convinced him, he in our Agents of Edgewatch game, not only are they all took flaws on purpose just for the sake of it to make it more interesting. When I asked them if they wanted to do the free archetype, someone just said, nah, don't bother. I was like, damn, man, you guys are taking flaws and no free archetype? Hardcore. And their characters are awesome because they're flawed. They're broken, they're flawed, they're interesting. And that makes a much more interesting game.
I agree. There's something to be said about a flawed character, even if in the average scale of the system they are subpar. I get a lot of flack every time I say this, but the GM can make it interesting. You know, if your entire party is all effectively one level weaker than they are, you know, if they're level 5, maybe don't throw a level 10 monster at them. But I get all these comments from people saying, like, the world is the world. If they play a bad character, they're gonna die for it. I'm like, what is that? Like, why are you actively trying to punish your players for playing a flaw? And, you know, I get the other side as well. I get, you know, they don't want to pull punches, and there are players who don't want to be babied, I guess. But that's where the idea of a broken system really changes at the table, is your GM will change a lot of what is and isn't broken at the table. The example that I'll give in my personal experience right now, on Thursdays, I play a 3.5 game, and I am playing a fighter. But we are playing very differently. We're using a lot of rules as written, but whenever my GM feels like it, he throws in something unique or cool that's not in the rules anywhere. For example, all of us have ultimate moves, like very video gamey, very much like this is your super move you can pull out when you need it. And they're broken. They're broken beyond belief. My dex-based fighter can throw up a dancing rapier, auto flank a target, and get twice as many attacks per turn as he fences with the dancing rapier. Super cool, super broken, but it's so flavorful. And he throws harder challenges at us because he knows we have access to it. And I'm just going to keep repeating myself at this point, but yeah, as long as your GM can balance the campaign around the balance of the party, it almost doesn't matter how broken a system is. Where the broken system really starts to matter more is in things like organized play, where you can't do stuff like that, and it's much more rigid in the rules and their integration.
Well, I was going to say,
I agree with both Steven and Nonat on this one, and I think that broken games can be a huge amount of fun. But Nonat, you said it best. They are a huge amount of fun, but they require a massive amount of work. Yes, especially from the GM.
They are harder on the GM.
Like, sure. I ran epic levels in 3.5. Okay, everyone knows a little bit about those. I think I've mentioned before on this stream, but my group that were level 21 easily beat a CR 40 monster that I put against them, and then almost died to a CR 21. But I knew, because I had play tested them, that they would do both of those two things, because the system didn't really work as intended, but it worked for us because we spent a lot of effort on it. So when it comes to having a game that feels satisfying, because, and someone said this in the chat as well, because the Ivory Tower game design, you know, it's like, I figured out all of these combos. A lesser player, or whatever people say, would not have found them. It's kind of elitist, but it makes it so that some players feel really good about doing that. But it can lead other players to fall into holes and traps where their character is not doing very much. And if they're in the same group, they're feeling like they're not contributing at all, that they're like kind of the person who's watching while Superman does everything for them. Well, I guess the BMX Bandit versus the Angel Summoner. So it's kind of the your individual campaign of a really broken game can be like the best. It can maybe even hit higher highs than anywhere, because you've put so much work into it. You've thrown things in, and I've done things like your GM No Nuts, where I gave some ridiculous ability. I was like, yeah, this just ignores all defensive moves, or your steal ability rogue lets you just steal one of the special qualities or special abilities on the monster temporarily, and just take it. They all had like little ultimate moves, but it makes it so that new players and GMs will bounce off with a very high rate. It's incredibly arcane and difficult to get into a game that's like that successfully, because of the fact that you need to have all of this skill, you need to have all of this time. So I think that a game is not better if it's broken, but that individual campaigns and games that are run into it can be tons of fun, assuming that you have all the right ingredients.
I just wanted to say that what makes a role-playing game different also than, say, a video game, well, some video games, is that you're playing with other players. And now this happens a lot in MMOs with World of Warcraft, where it'll be like, oh, my character class sucks, and my character class is OP. I mean, I used to play a hunter, so I know very well, because hunters were pretty much OP
Pretty much the entire life.
Pretty much the whole game, more or less. And Chris played a warlock, and warlocks.
I was about to use warlock.
They went all over the place, man. Warlocks, you know, they were OP and they were gimp. They were everything. They were everything in that game, and you know, it's really hard to play a game when like one player is quote broken, and I'm playing in 3.5 or sorry Pathfinder. First edition, boy, did I like to play that Slayer. Damn, was that thing broken. Slayer was so good. Slayer was so freaking fantastic.
They were good. They were. I don't think they were broken. They were very strong.
They were really powerful, and they felt it. They felt really at lower levels. I didn't play it that high, but at lower levels, they were just incredibly powerful. And you know, but it would be upset that someone be like, okay, I attack someone. I do 3 points of damage, and then as soon as you wrote something, I can see it. Is that instead of doing 3 points of damage, we do, you know, I think I did like 17 points of damage at level 1 or something, you know, and it just makes everyone feel kind of like, like, you know, like great, you know, and that's sort of a big aspect of having a broken game, is that, you know, you don't want to be that person that you're just sort of breaking the game for the group. You're not, you know, like you are way too strong and everyone else is just sort of following along. And then, you know, it just can lead to hard feelings. And, you know, that's why it's like, it's important to have a group that is playing the same game. If you're all playing power game, if you all want a power game, fine, all power game. And that way the GM can balance it. But don't have it that one guy decides, you know what? Oh, okay, we did this. I'm like the only player in history that hated Kingmaker, because when I played Kingmaker, Seth and his wife decided to play pacifists, and they decided that they wanted to try to win all encounters without combat.
Yikes.
Chris and Bob did not. They did not want to do that. They wanted to kill everything. And
you have to get the group to decide together.
They did not decide together, and it was. And on top of you having Kingfinder being non-linear, and oh man, it was a mess. It was a total mess, that game.
It's really rough.
We had a lot of pacifists, but they all were. We all were, so it worked.
Yeah. And well, what ended up happening, I remember there's a part where there was like Dragonkin or something, and then they successfully negotiated past them. And then they won, and then Chris is like, where's the loot? I'm like, they took it with them. Right. And everyone was like, and they were pissed. They were like, well, then why, you know, and then they started to fight with each other, because it's like, great, we talked our way out of it, and we got nothing for it. Now, me as a GM should have adjusted it in retrospect, and I think I probably did. But the point is that if you're going to have pacifists, make sure you change the gold and how you reward them, because they're not going to be getting a lot of golden rewards, because nothing's going to die. So you got to figure
it's Kingmaker in PF1, so it had like hundreds of days of downtime and broken crafting system where you can turn that into doubling your money.
We never made it past book 1. That's the problem. We made it to book
Fair,
1,
so
and then
you
they
didn't get
suicided
into
their
that.
characters and died.
Oh.
So because they were like, this is not working.
Pacifists are so hard in TTRPGs unless everyone's a pacifist. You know, it's very similar to trying to play a lawful good paladin in a party with a chaotic neutral rogue. Like, in all things considered, you should not be working together. Like,
Yeah.
I
you
spoke
have
to
really
I spoke to
stretch
Jason
things.
Bowman about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And who else designed first edition? Jason and who else? I forgot who I spoke to.
I mean, Paizo, like lots of people chipped in, but the vast majority of that rules text was Jason just going,
okay.
like not even having to go into the office. They're just like, stay at home. The commute is adding hours.
Well, anyhow, I was
more things into this.
I was talking to
like
Jason.
A lot of other people contributed to the manuscript, but that was his baby updating 3.5 into PF1.
But anyhow, I was talking to Jason about that, and I mentioned this to him, and he just shook his head, and he goes, "It's just not designed for that." You know, like it's like if it's like Pathfinder First Edition is designed that you're going to fight. You know, I guess you could rewrite it that way. But I remember he said to me, he goes, if you want to play a game like that, there's other RPGs that are better suited for that.
Exactly. The D&D, Pathfinder, they're at their core, they're war games. At their core, they are grid-based war games. They're just smaller scale than something like Warhammer. And yeah, that's where things like Call of Cthulhu, Cyberpunk, those games usually have a little bit more, not even necessarily more depth, but more focus on roleplay because there's less depth to the combat. Like Call of Cthulhu, its whole combat is, oh, you shoot him, what's your firearm skill? Roll that. That's it. It has set damage. There's not much to it. You don't have a class, really. You have a job. When there is less focus on the combat, it will lead to more in-depth roleplay, and there are more skills in something like Call of Cthulhu, so you might be able to apply more. I think PF2 has like 15 skills. Call of Cthulhu has at least 20 plus. So yeah, they're different systems and they're designed for different things. I was actually talking to my girlfriend this morning about the exact same thing. That each TTRPG can be considered a medium, and one medium cannot be told to tell every story.
Right. Actually, that's actually a good
absolutely.
point. So real quick, because we're about halfway through, looks like we're getting people. It always seems to take about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
we got 10
totally
likes.
does.
Let's get those likes up, because if we get 50 likes every week, when we get 50 likes, I showed you how to make a dragon with your hands. We got Derek
Derek to say which of the cute ancestries he hated.
Yes, because he hates cute ancestry. So we forced him to go through his least. We gave him the 5 cutest ancestries, and he had to list them in
Poppet was his
least
favorite.
hated to most hated.
Oh, I mean, depending on the Poppet, sure.
He
like
hated
a little,
the Poppet.
Tin Soldier, I would hate that. Like a little animated
He
teddy
just
bear.
hates
Come
them
on.
entirely.
He hated Poppets. His Poppet was.
He's known for hating leshies, but they actually weren't his least favorite.
Yes. Well, he's known for hating everything nice. So if you get, let's see, we're up to 16. We gotta get more likes,
sugar and spice.
and then we'll have Nonat tell us something. We'll get maybe his either least or most liked. He has lists on his channel, but we'll get him to give us his favorite or least favorite. Well, we'll get something from him. I'll think about it. I'll get
Knowing
something
me,
silly.
what I say here will not line up with my lists.
No, of course not.
My opinions change on an hourly basis.
Oh, I didn't expect it to. But first we'll do, my audio's still working. Hey, Nonat.
Hi.
Tell us all about Sinclair's Codex and Almanac, which is finally going live, because you've been on here 100 times and it was always about to go live, but now it's live.
It's been live for 2 weeks now. Yes,
There you
Sinclair's
go.
library went live about 2 weeks, almost to the day now. 2 new supplements for both Pathfinder 2e and D&D 5e. There's a book for GMs, which has a bunch of playable NPCs that you can just pick up, put right in your game. We've got a bunch of different player options in the Almanac, new classes, new ancestries, magic items, feats for existing classes, new subclasses for those classes, the whole 9 yards. There is so much going into both of these books, and we are getting a specific professional 5e converter. I have a really big name I want to drop, but I don't think paperwork has been signed, so I don't want to drop the name. But our 5e converter is almost on board. And I can't wait to announce who that is because we're so psyched if this works out.
Cool.
But we're getting a 5e converter to make sure that everything in both books not only works for 5e, but isn't like a shell of the Pathfinder version, because it is being originally designed for Pathfinder 2e, but we're not cutting corners on the 5e conversion. We are going to put as much directly into 5e as organically as possible without sacrificing any of the content. I know it's been a worry for some people, so that's why, I'll come out and then say how much we're putting a lot of effort and time into the 5e version as well.
We know all about that as we convert all of our
That's
stuff.
us too, right?
Yeah.
Starting in PF2 and then getting some really skilled 5e people to make sure that the 5e content is good. And like, it can work. Like if you have the right people, in some ways, Pathfinder 2nd edition as a start can make really good 5e content. Like I know Knights of Last Call, their 5e guy who was doing the review said that he found Battle Zoo Bestiary's 5e version to be one of the best bestiary books for 5e he'd ever seen, possibly partially because it started from PF2, and so it had more like interesting and unique abilities.
Yeah, and for me personally and our design team, we've pretty much gone on record saying it's easier to make something complicated and then simplify it than to make something simple and then make it more complicated in like the 2e to 5e or 5e to 2e. So like it's easier to make something with more depth and detail just due to the nature of the system in 2e, and then simplify it, change the number of actions to a type of action, change amounts of resistance just to resistance. There's a lot of little things, and definitely the hardest part is going to be catching, make sure you change heal to cure light wounds and stuff like that. The little things are going to be the hardest to catch on the conversion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then next up, believe it or not, we have endless no-nat stuff. It's funny because I was like, I'm going to show the PaizoCon schedule, and then I realized, no-nat is in our PaizoCon schedule.
I'm going to be there.
You are going to be there. So the first one I have is, and not even you know about this, Mark. I didn't have a title for it, so I just called it Jewel of the Indigo Isles Adventures in Rumplank live stream.
I actually did know that.
Oh, that's right, because I sent you. I did?
Yeah. I knew that because of
the email that went out this morning.
Something.
Yeah, I
saw a preview or a slide. I don't know. I saw it
something
today, and I can't remember where I saw it.
So yeah, we're going to be playing level 1 Iconics. Mark is writing something up. I have no idea what it is. None of us do.
Oh, it was in the newsletter.
It was in the newsletter.
Steven.
Yeah,
That's why I know what it is. It was
so
in the newsletter.
It'll be on the Paizo Twitch stream, and it'll be on the Roll for Combat. Of course, I got to figure out how to do that. Hopefully, you guys bring a computer, because I think I'm going to need. I just realized I'm going to need 2 computers to do that, one for each. And that'll be from.
Or can you? Oh wait,
no, they're different.
One's Twitch and the other one's YouTube.
Yeah,
so
well, and also they have different
you might
keys.
be able to multi-stream.
They have different keys. They have different keys. You could, but I don't want to deal with it. So it's just easier to have 2 computers, because then you have one OBS for the Twitch stream and one OBS for the YouTube stream. Otherwise, it gets. You can do it, but it's a mess. It's just easier to have 2 computers. Anyhow, that's from 4 to 8 Pacific or 7 to 10 Eastern. That'll be Friday. So this, I have no idea. I never play. So all I know is we're going to be doing something, and we're all going to be playing the Iconics. And I guess Linda
the Leshy.
Linda will be the
You guys can
Leshy.
decide now and make.
I don't even know.
Play
I don't know these
whatever's
Iconics. So.
There is. Well, I'll show you what there's a Wildfire. Well, the Wildfire Leshy. That she's already that. There's the Gamayan.
Ooh, I do like the Gamayans.
No, I
so
think I'm going to
cute.
be I want to be the Gamayan. And then
so
there's
you 2 decide between you, the Gamayan, the dragon,
the
and
dragon,
the Sprite, the
the
Galtagori.
Sprite. Yeah,
And then
Galtagori.
make Vanessa play whatever is left. She's the guest of honor, so guests of honor.
She is the guest of honor. Damn.
They have to be gracious and hospitable and take the last regen.
I got to figure that one out. Anyhow, so that will be that. And then, of course, we have the other streams, if you want, and meetings. If you're there live, you can see us. And we go from 11 to 12 to 1, where we have online content creation. And that will be with Vanessa, Nonad, myself, and Mark. And we'll do like a Q&A, and we'll talk about different ways to do it. And then we have creating winning monster for RPG Superstar. And I have a big RPG Superstar announcement, which people are going to, not even Mark knows about. And We'll
I
show.
actually don't know about.
He does. It does
this
not,
one. I
and
really
no one
don't.
knows this because I've been working on it in secret. And then our big Battle Zoo 2022 future products. That one's gargantuan. That will be everywhere. I'm sure you're going to see that afterwards quite a bit.
You
But
should
we're going to
maybe
go
tell
through
me about
everything
the
that's coming
RPGs.
out, and that's a week and a half from now. And then last but not least, we always do a new heritage or ancestry. We only have one more after this that come with Jewel of the Indigo Isles, and we have the Wildfire Leshy, and that is the iconic on the left. The guy with the little
Wildfire.
I don't know what that is. It's sort of a in fact, I have him here in mini form. You can't really see him because I'm tiny.
Nice.
Hello,
I can
hi, I'm
sort
a
of see
mini. I'm a mini,
awesome.
and look, he's got a little thing. So, and the minis are almost done. I actually found a really good printer for the minis, and he's sending me
yeah.
samples.
I can't wait to get our minis from our iconics. Oh,
Yeah, minis are a pain. I won't get into minis. Minis are like because
that's a whole can of
It's
worms.
a whole thing, man. It's like if you want, because if you do vacuum formed minis, those are dime a dozen. Everyone does those, but they're very, very expensive. But it's the in between, which is what we do, like the hard resin, and
Yeah,
not a
we're
lot of
doing
people
the-
do that.
We're doing the hand assembled.
Oh, that's
I don't
even
know.
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck
They're
with
so high
that.
quality. So we're so excited to see
Really?
those.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. Look at that. It worked. Oh,
God.
jeez of ages. He super chatted. While we're in halftime, is the Dungeon Ancestry going to be put on Path Builder? It's been out for a while and still not there. Okay, so you have to write, what's his name, Mark, I believe, who does Path Builder. I asked him to put it on Path Builder, and he said it was too silly.
Aww.
He drew the line. So, Cheese of Ages, please beg him. I will poke him and see if he'll do it, but it's one guy who runs that. And
Yeah, if he said he's not going to, then I don't think you asking again will make a difference.
it won't
Steven's
matter
gonna
for
have to-
me, but if you want it, just bug him. It's a very simple ancestry. I mean, it'll take him, I'm not going to downplay it. I think it'll only take him like an hour or so to put it on there. So, and we have it for Foundry. We got it out in like,
Ooh.
that was a crazy 24 hours, man. We got that thing done. We got the ancestries done. We got Foundry done. It was like one day.
Foundry wasn't
boom.
done on the same first day though.
Yeah, it was at night. We got it done.
Oh, I see. So it was technically
Technically,
yeah,
it was
I
still
gotcha.
April 1st. It was just we got it done late at night, but it was out.
Fair enough.
So there you go. But
Well done, Ian's. Well done.
yes, the Ians. Wait, so tell us about Wildfire Leshy, because I even don't know that much about it, because
so
you know more than I
basically,
do.
Wildfire Leshy is a fiery heritage for the Leshy ancestry. It's based on, it is the Wildfire Leshy, which is a creature that you can find in Battle Zoo Bestiary. So Wildfire Leshies are basically when that nature spirit or vitae, that life spirit comes into a charred remain of plants destroyed by wildfire instead of into like a gourd or a leaf or seaweed or something like that. It forms a wildfire leshy, which is part of the cycle of life, death, and rebirth of plants. And so they've got some fire-based focus, as you can see. They're generally one of those heritages that has fire resistance. You see them on several other ancestries, and they'll have some additional feats that are particular for them because they're a little different than the leshies you may have seen.
As the plants they embody are dead, are they technically undead creatures or no?
They're not.
Okay.
Because of the fact that they are living life forces. They're still living spirits that have come into these charred plants and are giving them new life. So they look charred, but they're quite alive.
Cool.
The thing that's really surprising is that Leshy husks from Battle Zoo Bestiary are not undead, because
Right, that's what I was
everyone who sees them, including me, thinks they're undead at first. And I eventually discovered they weren't actually, like, at Paizo, because husks were in one of the adventure paths.
Mm-hmm.
And like the edit lead of the adventure path was talking to me because I was the design lead. The development lead like does most of the stuff, but we do like little side things. And I do rules as the design lead, and the edit lead does like wording. And it's like, this husk thing here, like I'm not sure like what the trait is. I was like, it's from Battle Zoo Bestiary, isn't it undead? And we looked at it, it's like, but it isn't undead. So
undead.
it actually doesn't require you to know the trait, because the trait doesn't say it's undead or have any other rules language, and so we figured it out.
So Cheese of Ages wants to know, what is the critter on the shoulder of the right
Yeah,
one?
That is a
like a
very good
resin?
question.
That
Cheese
is
of
a
Ages.
very
I can
good
answer
question.
that. Is it okay for me to answer that, Stephen? It's
Sure.
a new piece of information.
Yes.
It is a creature called an ember sap ooze. So ember sap oozes are a special little critter that you can find in the Indigo Isles and also in the world of Alucard. They are they're not always that smart, but they generally aren't mindless, and they sometimes swarm. The reason it looks like it has little eyes is because they tend to incorporate charcoal into their body and make little faces out of the charcoal to express themselves. And they look angry when they've been startled or angered. And they're often taken as familiars by fire associated creatures such as wildfire leshies. They will be available as a familiar in the Lost, or not the Lost Omens, in the it's in the Jewel of the Indigo Isles character guide.
Yes.
There's a Lost Omens character guide, so you see.
Yeah, that's a different one.
Confused.
Yeah, in fact, this is sort of public, is that Linda is writing a whole section on familiars, and we're going to be introducing really cool, cute, fun familiars that you can add to your game. And here's a perfect one, the Ember Sap Ooze. It's a ooze that uses charcoal and rocks to make faces. It's sort of like it's like Mum and Chance. Did anyone get that joke?
Not even a little bit.
Okay, I'm old. Anyhow, if you want to look up, back in the 70s, there was a group called Mum and Chance that would use their bodies to make faces. They were on the Muppet Show. So there you go. Anyhow,
a Swiss mass theater group.
you had to look it up. You're like, what?
In a surreal, prop-oriented style. There we go.
I saw them as a kid. They were really popular in the 70s. Everyone was talking about Mum and Chance. Oh well, it's sort of like river dancing. It just sort of came and went, you know.
Fair.
Anyhow,
Gina B is wondering why wildfire leshies pop up in the Indigo Isles. It's because the Indigo Isles has so many different biomes and different natural cycles that you get a lot of wildfires in certain areas. And even after those periods of wildfires end, there's the wildfire leshies don't like leave at that point in time. So there's actually a lot of leshies of various different kinds in the Indigo Isles, just in general, because it's a place that's lush with natural spirits and vitae, all types, some of which are like different than leshies. That is even a plot point that comes up at one point in the adventure. But just because wildfire leshies are our new thing, the ones that we tend to show more are the wildfire leshies. But you can expect that other kinds of leshies are also pretty common in there too.
Yeah, there's a wide variety of life forms. The Indigo Isles is incredibly diverse, so there's a lot there, to say the least. And back to broken D&D or Pathfinder. So
broken.
Yes.
I have to say, and I was thinking about this, and oh god, this is going to inflate Mark's ego even more, but it's like, it really is a testament that I can't believe how well, it's really kind of mind-boggling that Pathfinder 2 is so asymmetrical that all the classes and everything feels different. And yet nothing seems to be, my guys have been playing almost 3 years now, except for the flick mace. I don't really think there's anything really, I'd say, broken in the game. I mean,
not really, no.
It's really hard to break it. Trust me, we've tried.
Fighters, but
you can argue fighters, at least in the beginning.
Yeah,
they're definitely incredibly strong. They are. Like, fighters are very, very strong.
But that's all they are.
Yeah, but that's all they are.
You can argue them, and heck, I had 2 fighters in my game that I played in Adventure Path, start to finish. War for the Crown, I converted it to 2E. But let me tell you, the Wizard, which Wizard special interest groups tend to claim is a...
Everyone claims they're one of the weakest classes in the game now.
Oh, supposedly, it was always the... the fighters were great. They never underperformed. I'm not saying they did badly at all. In fact, they have some really great moments. But the one who was most likely to be the MVP, and he wasn't always, but most likely, was the Wizard.
Yeah.
He had like, there were like 6 party members, right? The wizard had like 30 to 40% of the MVPs, which is like
Sure.
twice as many as a person on average. And the fighters both sometimes did have MVP for the group, but the wizard just, he would do things. It would be like the enemy was incorporeal, was retreating, he disintegrated the floor, and they went after the person. Like he was constantly doing something that would change the paradigm, or that just like suddenly turned things around.
People are so hyper focused on the spell attack rolls. They are so focused on how behind they are compared to marshals that they don't give the time of day to saving throw abilities, all the different conditions they can have. Most of those saving throw abilities having success effects. Like even if they make their saving throw, it still does something, which can't be said for almost every martial ability in the game. If you miss as a martial, it doesn't do anything. If they make their saving throw against fear, they're still frightened, for a round. It still does something.
Yeah.
And that should
Our
not be
MVP
understood.
wizard actually used a lot of spell attack rolls. Disintegrate was one of his favorite spells.
Wow.
He was a diviner, so he was full of true strikes and true targets.
Oh,
So,
there you go. Yeah, there are ways around it.
Yeah, and he just somehow he always sniffed out anything with a low fortitude save, and just like bad things happened. Like they were in this evil assassin monk dungeon in the sewers, and they managed to find a secret door that was kind of near the entrance that leads to where like the boss monk is and some of her strongest monks. It's, you still have to fight everything else, but you wind up like the second encounter in that dungeon is the boss. And so they come out of the secret door. The party's surprised that the boss monk is there. The boss monk surprised someone came out of her escape door. And so it starts off, and like a fighter, I think that the fighter like hits her a little bit, and then the wizard disintegrates her with true strike, and it's a crit. And she gets a regular failure on the save, which becomes a critical failure.
Oh, God.
Fort was her weak save. She was an elf monk.
Oh.
And so she was very, very dodgy and had very high wisdom because she was a very old elf monk, and her fortitude was weak, and she was dust. And the morale condition of the evil assassin monks was like they fight to the death because they are completely confident that their leader cannot be defeated, but she was just turned into dust.
She's just dead,
like before they could go, like in 2 seconds. So I just had them, I was like, I told my party members their morale condition was that, and then I said, but they like their eyes bug out and they scream and they run away because
well, I just had my game the other day. Oh man, that was good. If you do it, I did attack, and one of the PCs, what level are they? 12. And one of the PCs had like 120 hit points. Finger of death. 70 points of damage. There's no roll. It's just 70 points.
God.
They failed their save. That's 140 points of damage, and you die.
Oh, that was a critical failure.
Critical failure.
It's
You
a death effect,
die
it's instant kill.
instantly.
Yep.
They use their hero point because they're like, well, I guess I'm using my hero point. And it was actually risky because if they failed again, that's it. They're dead forever.
Yeah.
And they actually succeeded, so it became 35 points of damage. But there was like, we were like, now that was the best use of a hero point I've ever seen, because it went from death.
Yeah, critical failure to
The little
35
bruise.
damage.
Yeah. No, and that's what's so interesting about Pathfinder 2E as a broken system. The way you break 2E is you can't build that broken of a character. But what you can do is research, spend downtime to learn about what you're going to fight, and exploit as many weaknesses as you can, whether literal numerical weaknesses like positive against undead, or having a plan of attack that abuses low movement speeds, or if they're flying creatures, if you can stop them from flying. That's where you're going to get your big advantage in the system, is stopping enemies from doing what they do.
So anyhow, I did want to say, and I wanted to ask Mark this because Mark will know, and this is very interesting, I think. So 5E. 1.0 and 3.5. God, these numbers are really getting to me.
There's a lot of numbers.
There was a lot of save versus death.
Yes.
And now Finger of Death was the first time I can think of that was a true save versus death. And then even some of the other ones, like trying to remember, there's a couple of spells in there that you have to jump through hoops to kill someone. Like they have to fail one save and then fail another save.
You mean PF2?
PF2, right? In PF2.
Oh, PF2, yeah.
Like Phantasmal Killer.
Phantasmal Killers, actually, I can remember. Yeah, Phantasmal Killer is a good example.
They need to critically fail the first save and then fail again.
And another one is like Flesh to Stone. Like, Flesh to Stone used to be horrible. Flesh to Stone is not so bad right now. It's not great, but all these save versus death spells, which there were many, many, many in 3.5 and older editions of D&D. Now there's save versus death, but it takes a lot for that to kick in. You got to fail a lot of things. And what was the thinking behind that?
Oh, well, I mean, 3.5 and Pathfinder First and others was kind of the save or lose edition. I mean, there were multiple editions that were like that, but it was also the edition that let you boost the difficulty of saving to possibly the highest you ever could in any edition of the game. And so it was more of the roll the save and then you lose, because who cares what you roll? Oh, it was a nat 20. Okay, roll again because I used persistent spell. So in Pathfinder Second Edition, it was all about the idea that, you know, these are the spells, these are the abilities, and the monsters have them too. And it's not fun when your character is just out of the fight or dead.
Yeah. Instant kill of a player character, unless it's done in a very cinematic, good timing, it's not fun.
It feels cheap, even if you've completely balanced the creature and you're like, okay, I'm the designers in third edition. I've looked at this Bodak and I'm convinced it's balanced for its level. Like, its attacks are really crappy. They barely do anything except its death gaze that instantly kills you. And like, it's got this one dangerous thing and its defenses aren't that great either. And okay, let's say they're convinced it's balanced. It still is not a fun creature, because either it instantly kills you and then it's not fun because it feels cheap, even though, you know, you carefully researched it and you're like, okay, but their other stuff is weak. Or it doesn't instantly kill you and that ability fails, and then it's really weak, and then it's not a fun encounter because it's like you were fighting against a 5-year-old. So that's kind of a lot of the thought in Pathfinder Second Edition, is that save or lose, save or die type stuff tends to be not fun no matter what. And so we tried to put things into critical failure effects, so that they would not be seen as often if they're really bad. And we tried to put the, oh, haha, your spell did nothing, into critical success effects, so they would not be seen that often, because that feels bad. And we tried to have the success and failure effects be something that was like pretty fun, and like the success effect is like, okay, I'm a little disappointed, but that still did something that was reasonably useful. And the failure is like, okay, that's great. And then the critical failure is I win.
Yeah,
or like
the win
I
button.
might as well win because you know, they're out for a round, and in this game that's enough that you just take control of the battlefield. And then the critical success is, okay, nothing happened, I'm very upset, they critically succeeded.
I will say,
how often can they do that?
You do have those save or death, but they're for the PCs, because we had Banishment and they were fighting like Luca demons or something, and then they just kept spamming it until it hit.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and it worked. And I was like, and you know, I'm like, yeah, that's what it's for, you know. And it actually was hard.
It's an incapacitation effect. So like, if
they'll never kill a boss.
To quote, spam a banishment against something, you would need to. It's either much weaker than you, or you have a lot more of your max level spell slots than most characters have. So like. We hope that it's fair. Like, yeah, maybe you knew you were fighting demons, and maybe you did prepare all your top spells as banishment, or you're a sorcerer and you use all your top slots, but you put a lot of effort into that to cast all those banishments. You probably, you know, you deserve to get some kind of really outrageous effect there.
And it was hard. It was hard for it to. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't an easy save. I'm sorry, it was an easy save for the monster. It was not like, oh, they had to roll like a 15 or higher, or 17 or higher. Like, I think they said to roll like a 10 or 9, you know, like it was pretty, you know, it was pretty reasonable. Like the demon had a good chance, and the player liked that. They're like, okay, he resisted it. I like that. It's not like a win now button.
My favorite use, I think, of the crit fail, crit success 4-stage system, and probably my favorite monster to run. I mean, overall, PF2's monster design using that with poisons and diseases is fantastic. I think my favorite example of that is the Basilisk in 2E, especially if my players have never read the stat block. So spoilers if you're ever going to fight one. But the fact that, you can crit fail and turn to stone, but you could also like fail, or I think you have to accumulate slowed 3, but like a fail is slowed 1, crit fail is slowed 2. So it's not this instant death, but if this thing keeps looking at you, or there's multiple round after round, it's this slow creep of being out of the fight that it's like we said, it doesn't feel cheap. It's not instant. It can't really do it in one turn. But it'll still happen. And especially, I like that there's flavor text for how to unpetrify them. But again, if no one has nature and no one figures it out in character, it might as well be. So death with an out, I think, is one of my favorite ways to run that kind of thing.
By the way, I found...
Steven was talking about that with Flesh to Stone.
Yeah, and I was I found the bug in the game back when it first came out, because in... Which game was that? Oh, in Circus, when you fight a cockatrice, and it doesn't have us talking to Patrick about this, it doesn't tell you how long the petrification lasts, and doesn't tell you how to get rid of it. And and he's like, oops. And
I remember that.
Yeah.
There's a glitch in Book of the Dead that's like that. There's the Daywalker feat for vampires. It says it caps you at slowed 2 in sunlight, but there's no duration. Theoretically, as written, you are slowed 2 for the rest of your life.
Well, when you're in sunlight, right?
Yeah.
Well, it says the sunlight afflicts it, but it doesn't say it goes away once you're out of the sunlight.
Well, you know
think
what?
The normal vampire vulnerability does say that already, right?
I don't think so, because I think that just says if it hits 3, you're dead.
But it also says that but when you get out of sunlight, that the slow goes away.
Oops.
I think that the thing that people consider to be the bug in that is, which could be a feature, potentially, is that once you hit slow 3, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So you're just sitting there until it's nightfall. But that is a better situation than being dead.
And even on the vampire creature stat vulnerability section, it has no duration.
It just doesn't say.
The slowed value increases by 1 every time you end your turn. If it loses all actions, it's destroyed. Doesn't cast a shadow.
Got it. So it's not Book of the Dead that is the glitch.
Yeah, it's really all vampires. Yeah, and that's on Nethys, so I can only assume it hasn't been eroded yet.
Yeah.
Oops, Cheese of
It's
Ages.
because people kind of read into it that it goes away when the sun goes out, or when the sun goes out, but it's just not on there.
It should be implied. Rules is intended versus written.
Once it becomes something for a PC, suddenly a huge amount more scrutiny goes onto it than when it was for monsters. Well,
you also think, if an average game is 5 players, usually the GM only reads it on a monster. If players are reading it now, that's 4 times the number of people reading the same idea. So
right. Plus, it's their characters, so they need to understand it in intimate detail. Whereas for a monster, it's like it shows up, it does a thing, and then it's dead.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Cheese. By the way, you were banned. Oh man, we got hit by spam bots, and I literally turned on the lowest level security, and it accidentally deleted Cheese of Ages, and I'm not exactly sure why.
I wonder what it deleted. Did it delete?
I don't know.
Did it think the word goons was a problem?
I don't know. I'm sorry, Cheese. I'm like, how I gotta fine tune that thing. Look, we haven't been hit by. I've never been hit by a spam bot before, and that thing was nasty. It was going crazy.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I've never been hit in a stream before. They hit my videos usually every time.
I've been hit in Twitch streams, but I've never been hit by one that spammed 8 times in a row like that.
Yeah, that was like crazy. So I literally put it on the lowest level setting, and it hit Cheese. I'm like, come on, man. I was like, ooh, sorry about that. But hey, look, I got something in the mail today, or the other day. Look, it's our 5e version of the Battles of Bestiary.
Yay!
Finally got this thing. Look at that little
Cool.
5e on the side. So this is how you can tell them apart. Because this is why you need to get the books. Because I was like, how can you tell them apart in the shelf? And I was like, I better figure that out, because if you had them right next to each other. Let me get one out here before I pull down my whole shelf. Great, I dropped the book.
While you're doing that and fixing your shelf, Enrif in chat mentioned that on our discussion of asymmetry and balance. Ooh.
You say that way, you can tell. Fine. You're like, that one's Pathfinder, and that one's 5e. Otherwise, they look identical the same.
Enrif said spellcasters with limited resources that marshals usually don't, like in PF2. Isn't it fair that the limited resource might be more valuable than anything a marshal can do? So I would say the answer is yes, but. So if you're a high-level spellcaster, yes, theoretically, like all of your spell slots are a limited resource, but in reality, only really the top ones are that limited of a resource. Like if you're looking at all the slots you might have 50 spell slots. That's not that limited. The number of rounds you're fighting in the day is probably fewer than 50 rounds.
Plus, cantrips keep up with average weapon damage really well.
They do take extra actions, so they're usually a little bit worse. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That was the next thing I was going to get into, which is cantrips are unlimited.
They're so powerful.
If you want your top level slots to be doing things that are way outside the range of what like a marshal can do it well, which you definitely do want, then you also want to make sure that whatever's at will is not also better than or equal to what the marshals can do, because then it's like, well, my at-will cantrips are equal to their at-will thing. And also I have this thing that I can use limitedly that's better than them, so that we don't need them. So definitionally, you want the at-will thing to be worse than the marshal's at-will routine. And it is. But it's not as much worse as you might think, especially at low levels. Cantrips are actually, which are this is by intent because you don't have very many spell slots at those levels. Cantrips are actually pretty darn good. I have seen like 2 casters with cantrips like wrecking encounters in an orc play scenario where I was coming in with my healing cleric. I didn't even need to heal because of the druid and the sorcerer. I think we're just killing everything with cantrips.
What's so funny to me is if we rewind time 2 years to the point where Pathfinder 2e is like 3 maybe 6 months old, everyone was constantly talking about how broken Electric Arc was, because Electric Arc was and honestly still is the highest damaging cantrip if you hit 2 targets. But then over the course of these 2 years, somehow people have forgotten that like everyone except clerics or I think everyone but divine get Electric Arc. Maybe I don't think a cult does either.
Cult doesn't either.
But probably over half of spellcasters have access to this, which not only is it a cantrip, but it's a cantrip with a saving throw that still does damage on a success. That is so reliable. Like even if a monster
Cheese is back. Cheese, I just wanted to make sure you were back. Good. I felt terrible. I was like, oh man, it's like it's like who gets banned? It's like our best supporter gets banned and the bot is still here. I'm like, come on, man. Sorry about that, Cheese. I'll get you something special for that. I feel bad.
but yeah,
and I mean, Electric Arc is a little bit more than the other cantrips. The problem is, if you were familiar with the playtest, only raised cantrips amounts like half as often, and it raised them by more,
like height,
which was actually very bad at the levels where you were waiting for the increase. So I rightly made them raise at every spell level instead of every 2 spell levels. That was terrible. However, the problem is that makes the nuance of like D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. It shunts it down into D4 and D6. And so Electric Arc, which used to have 1 die size smaller than some of the others, 1 die size smaller every 2 levels. And so it was close, but it was behind. Suddenly had the same die size. And there was no in between that wasn't like outlandishly mathematically bad. So some of the others got other perks, like Ray of Frost got a really, really long range.
Yeah, and I love that.
Really long. It's long than a lot of non-cantrips.
Yeah, 120 feet is insane.
All right, so everyone put on their likes. Everyone hit that like button if you want to see Nonad dancing around the room.
Halfway. I don't think Nonad's gonna have to dance unless a lot.
I'll answer a question for 30 likes.
No, 30. For 30. All right, for 30 likes.
Come on, get it to 30, guys.
That's what you 30 is easy.
Willing to give you things for cheap. Like
we had
that
up to
time
50
on the Dragon
people
stream
before. I don't know what happened.
That he was like, 120, and then he got 200.
Well, even the other day we were like 50, and then boom, it was 50. I think you know what I think it is. I think it's because it's warm out and everyone's like, no one wants to be in front of their computer. I went to on Sunday. It was like gorgeous in New York, and I went to the diner, and there was 1 person there, and that place is usually packed. And I'm like, I think everyone's out barbecuing, so it's the same thing. It's It's like it's getting nice out, it's getting summery. People don't want to sit inside watching their YouTube. Although I don't know, that's what I do at the beach. I'm like, I'm at the beach. What am I going to do? I'll watch a YouTube or I mean, just do it at the beach. That was the first time I ever saw Arcane Mark. I was on the beach.
What? There you go.
Yeah.
Now you watch Arcade Mark a bunch.
I was impressed. Remember, I was like, wow, this doesn't suck.
No, yeah, you told me you were like, that is what he said. He was like, I really don't like these variety shows or streams, and I don't watch them. But watch yours. I thought it didn't suck.
That's hilarious.
And I was on the beach in Fire Island. That's where I was when I first saw it. We're almost there. So wait, why would I want to be in the radiation of Hateful Daystar? I don't know what that means. Oh,
the Hateful Daystar is the
sun.
sun.
Oh, right. Hateful Daystar. You know what? That actually brings up a point. This is when I discovered that I didn't like 5e that much, is because there was this character who really wanted to play a drow. So we played a drow, and we're playing the Mines of Delmar, whatever that adventure's called.
Mines of Phandelver.
Yeah, Phandelver. And it's a really good adventure. Actually, it starts off fantastic.
I was really impressed by that one, yeah.
Except for the second part, and then they're like in a desert. And then I'm like, okay, well, now you get disadvantage at every single thing you do. And that's where the campaign ended. Because he was like, this sucks. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's a drow for you. What do you want? And then I was like, wow, this really is harsh, man.
Yeah, that's where, like, I never want my player's choice to completely limit them compared to the rest of the party like that. Like, at that point, I'll be like, as long as you have, like, an umbrella or a hood, you can ignore it. Like, as long as you're wearing it, right? Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, it just came out, and it was new for all of us. So, like, we didn't fully know the rules and everything. And I remember he was just like, and that's like an example of like, man, as I really wanted to play drow, he was so happy, and then the whole desert, and he just is like, man, this is not fun. And then it's broken. I'll travel by night, maybe. There you go. I don't know why we didn't think about that.
Sometimes traveling at the middle of the day is too hot anyway.
Yeah,
especially in a desert. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is like, I don't remember. It was a complex game because we had a mixture of new people, older people played before. It wasn't exactly like and it was people I've never played with, so it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that can make it harder.
So, but. Oh, look at that. We're up to 28 likes. No one wants to like us. We got 45 people watching.
I'm going out of the bathroom. If there's not 30 likes by the time I'm back,
I know.
doing something wrong.
Everyone like. It's like 2 more likes. Come on. I have a feeling what's happening is everyone's behind. That's what always happens. Because I go to streams myself and I'll be like, oops, I missed half an hour. And then I go back and then I see it. But Could be. So here's the thing. Video games, I'll never forget when I was younger, I forgot what game I was playing, but I got God mode back when God mode was like not so new. And I was like, and it was a game that was really hard. I got God mode. I played God mode. I played the game for like 10 minutes. It was horribly boring and I never played the game, and it broke the game. It ruined it for me. Yeah. And I learned, I'm like, this is terrible. I will
Sometimes
never.
A broken game can just actually ruin it.
Right.
Even though we were talking about really fun things with broken games where you adapt it on the fly. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in fact, you think about like Dark Souls and all these games that are super ultra hard, but fair, which I feel Pathfinder 2nd Edition is kind of like Elden Ring or Dark Souls in that it's hard, but it's completely fair, which I think is the testament of a great game. I don't
know how hard it is necessarily. I think it varies from group to group.
Yeah,
some of the APs are hard because of their encounter design, but I'm not sure that means that the system difficulty varies from group to group. Like, let me say, in Pathfinder First, I ran a Rise of the Runelords game where there were like 20 character deaths, not counting the times that they died and had Breath of Life. In War for the Crown, I killed 0.
Well, wait. First of all, the first adventure we ever played was Bowman's. And anything written by
Bowman's stuff is always the hardest.
It's incredibly hard
kind of thing. He had one in
Pathfinder
Pathfinder First,
is so hard.
where you open a door and you're in the aura of 4 mummies that if you fail any of the 4 saving throws, you're paralyzed.
Oh yeah.
That was not the one called Bone Keep that was created as this tournament style. You just like the hardest that he could think of.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. Also keep in mind,
is hard.
What I consider hard is, and this is what they consider hard, is that people are constantly going down when they fight. Is that like, why can't we ever have a battle where we just go in, we kill everything, and then we just walk away? And they're like, every single time we battle, someone goes down and someone comes, I'm like, yeah, but no one's dying.
Right?
Like, that's the thing. Like, no one's dying in Pathfinder, at least when I play. Actually, it's not true. People do die. But the point is that just because people go down doesn't mean it's unbalanced. It just means it's hard. Hey, off topic. I'm working on a Greek third party, and it's kind of ballooned out to where it will either be one huge book or 5 medium ones. Do you think I'm better off doing one big project or a handful of them? I can tell you
5 books is a lot of books.
I would do one book. I mean, I put it this way. It depends how you're writing it. Depends how expensive it is. Depends what you're doing with it. But it's going to be the problem with doing 5 of anything is they always get lesser as you go down. You would think people like, well, they did the first one, then they'll definitely get the second one, and they'll definitely get the third one. Strangely, it doesn't work that way. It actually goes that that people will not get the second one because they felt like they missed the first one, and then less people buy it, and so it's actually the opposite. So you want to do one book, not 5.
That's why I stopped doing any videos on my channel titled Part 1 or Part 2. Part 2 always flopped. Yeah,
and that's why you never see any movies that do Part 2. And that's why we even, like, we're doing, I mean, it's not a sequel, we're doing another Battles through Bestiary. I'm not numbering, they're not numbered. I mean, they're just different. They can
be done in any order. They're different themes.
They're just themes.
So I would say I have a slightly different answer. Although I agree with both Steven and Nonat that 5 is the wrong answer. But I'm going to pick none of the above potentially. I'm going to say maybe one book. But it depends on what your content is that you have. It may be the case that 2 is better. And the situation where 2 is better is if one of them can be kind of more of the player's guide, the character's guide, where it's like, this is everything I need to build a Hellenistic player character, including new classes and archetypes and spells.
2 different books.
Things for that. And if the other one can have like setting info, including secret information that you wouldn't want the players to know, and like new monsters like the Nemean lion and things like that, then maybe you can have 2. But I wouldn't do 5. I think that's too much. And 1 still might be right. So I'm not saying that Steven and Donuts are necessarily wrong, because we don't know what you wrote.
The last thing I'll say on the subject is, as well, is if this is all like character options, like none of this is monsters, none of this is adventures, it's just 5 books worth of character options, you might just need to cut some content. Keep what you think is core. Keep what is important. My design team for Sinclair is hitting this wall where like we're only allocating certain amounts of the book to each thing. So even though we want to make 300 class feats, we don't have room for that. We need to fit everything in. So we got to cut corners somewhere.
Welcome to game design.
Oily Right gave £5, which is $2. Sorry, $5.27, which is interesting. Your nomination.
I think it's €5. Isn't that?
It's €5. Sorry, not pounds. Sorry, euro. Your nomination for the most broken TTP RPG ability or mechanic other than from Pathfinder 2nd edition.
I mean, the easy option is Wish.
It says other than from PF2, so you mean like PF1 Wish or
any Wish, any Wish. I mean, I don't know if 5e Wish has more limitations.
You haven't had me as the DM. Go ahead and wish all you want. It's not going to turn out well. I guarantee you that.
Mechanic. Most broken. There were some RPGs that weren't really super thought out, and so they had some abilities that were like infinite loops.
Actually, I know what I have it. I have the most broken mechanic.
Okay.
Very simple. Oh, look, they came back. They came back.
Ban them.
Oh my God! They can't get them. I can't get them fast enough.
But look at the silly emojis.
I know. Gosh. There we go. Damn, man. How'd they get in so quick? I gotta. Spam bots found us. I guess we're popular. I guess that's a good thing. So, what is the most broken? Trip lock. trip lock in first edition, sorry, in 3.5 or first edition Pathfinder, it's broken. It's like where you basically you trip a monster and then they try to get up and then you trip them on the way up and then they stay tripped forever.
Not the most broken.
How do you trip as a reaction in 3.5?
You could just replace any attack that was made with a trip.
Yep.
Oh, any attack of opportunity can be a trip?
Yes.
Wow.
In 3.5 and Pathfinder, some of the combat maneuvers, trip included, were allowed to replace the attack.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So if you had enough reach when they were approaching you, you could trip them on the way in. And
I'll tell you why it mattered. Wait. I'm going to tell you why it was broken. Because in 3.5, if you don't forget, if you tried the move, it's like, okay, I get 7 attacks. Up, you moved, you get 1 attack. So they would trip and then just make it so monsters can never get more than 1 attack. It was, trust me, it wasn't by itself completely broken, but it led to more broken shenanigans. And it
I don't think it's the most broken thing that's ever been in a game.
Okay, so that's the most, for me, personally, it was the most broken.
Similar to that, again, not broken in and of itself, but can be easily abused, is just Healing Word in 5e.
Or even healing, like wands would be like,
well, Healing
ding,
Word
ding, 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 and
action.
throw it away.
The bonus action of Healing Word is what made it broken.
Yeah.
Because you can still take a full turn and get your Barbarian up at no penalty.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about 3.5 and PF1 specifically, like maybe the most broken thing was the Saruk ability to just permanently gain any ability, permanently give a reptilian creature any ability from like any other reptilian creature or something like that. And it had no duration. It was also instantaneous and could not be removed, and you could do it multiple times. And there's a way to get that ability on your character. And then you could also target yourself if you were reptilian. So that was at least one of the most broken things. I would say much more broken than trip block, because you could give yourself an infinite number of like ability boosts or AC or a lot of other things.
All right.
Okay, we had 30 likes now.
We passed it. Yeah, asked me a question. What
oh my god, that's so boring. Okay, someone ask him a really silly, bizarre question. It has to be a good question. I will choose it, and if you don't choose one, I'll choose one. Oh no, mine will be evil. Mine's gonna be super evil.
But you said a good question.
Good, evil, horrible. I don't think anyone's gonna ask you a question, so I might have to come up with one.
Bernardo's thinking.
Everyone's thinking. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything. There's nothing really that. Oh well, what do you think about the flick mace? What do you think about that?
I don't know enough about the flick mace.
Mark, what do you think? Is it as broken?
So the flick mace is a weapon that is one-handed, and it has reach. It's an advanced weapon that is one-handed, 1d8 reach. So a whip is a martial that's 1d4 with like a huge number of special traits.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's also the asp coil or whatever it's called, that is a d6 with an additional trait and reach that's martial. And a flick mace is an advanced that's a d8 and just reach.
I don't see how that's broken.
Well, it's the most damaging one-handed reach weapon.
Right, but unless you're a fighter, you're going to be at a -2 compared to your martial weapons.
I think that people consider it broken because since it's a gnomish weapon, gnomes and humans using that one feat can get it as they can get their advanced weapon as a martial on their martial proficiency. But assuming that advanced weapons are difficult to get, it theoretically lines up with other advanced weapons, but it is a very unique feature of an advanced weapon because it's one that most advanced weapons, when they get their extra stuff for being advanced, add traits. But what the flick mace kind of does, if you compare it to the asp coil, which is the most similar weapon, even though it came out later, is it kind of removes a trait and then uses that plus the leftover like value of being an advanced weapon to go up a die size.
Now it's almost balanced with gnomes though, because gnomes have a lot of strength anyway.
But a lot of people do it with
it's balanced for gnomes
with humans.
Yeah,
they use the thing. There's like, oh yeah, I was raised by gnomes.
Right. That's the problem is everyone jumps through hoops to get it. That's why it's broken.
So maybe the thing that's actually The problem is actually the human feat, unconventional weaponry.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Even that's a lot of hoops to jump through to get on average like 0.3 extra damage per die.
People do it.
Do.
Someone actually,
it's a whole extra damage per die.
if you look
but
on
do
Reddit,
lose out on a trait. It also, a lot of people like the flail weapon group because of the fact that tripping someone is probably
The trip's on a crit, right?
Yeah, tripping without a save on a crit,
Right.
like that one probably should have had a save, like the one that slows one.
Yeah.
It was on the borderline of which ones could have a save. And honestly, I brought up both of them potentially having a save, but there were a lot of people in favor of the slowed one having a save due to the fact that in a early alpha playtest that we were playing, Frost Runes did slowed one with no save on a crit. And I ran one against, and Logan was like GMing, and he was not happy about the number of times I slowed one his things. And also the other players at the table were the other designers, and they were also like, yeah, that's a little much. So they all kind of agreed that one should have a save because it was kind of outrageous. But with Trip, there weren't enough people that agreed it should have a save. So it's probably the best crit spec effect too. And that's
probably,
that is what kind of brings it over the top for people. Because they're like, yeah, sure, Asp Coil is fine. And you don't have to jump through any hoops other than the fact that it's uncommon and being a member of the Aspis Consortium or something. But it's not a flail.
God, I keep getting it. I got to turn on the spam thing, man. It's everywhere.
Been reporting them over and over again. I don't even know what's going on.
I know.
Why did it get rid of Cheese of Ages and not the bot?
Oh, because I turned it off. I turned it off. And I turned it off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I didn't want to accidentally. I'll fine tune the bot later. So we got some questions.
All right.
As my dog is barking, and you have to do it in Trevor voice.
So just for background there, I'll do that. I can agree to that. For background, for those of you who don't know, like a year and a half ago, when what were Dompiers in? Was that APG or Character Guide?
That was APG.
That was APG. Yeah. So when the APG came out, I did a video making a mini for a different website that was sponsoring me. No, that's right. We didn't even make him. He's in the APG. Trevor is in the APG. I don't know. He's not one of the official artworks though, or not one of the main ones. I'll have to find it. But there's just there's a Dompier in the APG, or it might have been in the Character Guide because it might have been the expanded feats. But he's got like the long hair covering one eye. He looks unimpressed. So he's just kind of like a teenager in high school who doesn't really care about anything. And it's not a phase.
Okay, so Trevor, if we have the questions aren't great, but we'll have. I'm going to put two of them together. So we'll say, what is your most disliked iconic, and what is your most liked host, Steven or Mark?
Oh. All right, let me open my iconics folder because that's the more important question.
Hey Mark, you need to refocus, so I'll show you a trick.
Yeah,
for those
I was noticing
this is how you do
really
it.
Blurry.
You take your hand. Anyone who doesn't know how to do this, you put it in front of the camera, then so you block it. Now take your hand away,
and then if that doesn't work,
that's worse.
No, there it goes.
It didn't even focus.
See?
And sometimes if that doesn't work, you can block out the camera completely and then rip your hand away.
Yeah. That's a trick.
Let's see. So my least favorite iconic. Oh, it's definitely tough. It's probably either the Bard.
What?
I don't even know his name.
You're not doing it in Trevor voice.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Look, I'm not going to put on a show for you conformists. Look, I guess the Bard's just a little too. I don't know. There's something about his design that doesn't speak to me. Maybe it's the weird mutton chops. But I like his dagger. But I think less than the Bard, I don't like the monk iconic just because there's not a lot of flavor to him. He's usually just punching or kicking someone, which that's what a monk does, but I couldn't even tell you his name. Do you know the name?
Sajan.
You could be making that up and I'd believe you.
His sister's name is Sajni. She was a warrior, but when like the person that was the lord over that area lost to another lord, she was like taken as hostage by the other lord, but then got lost along the way. And Sajan went on a quest to find like what happened to his sister.
And so where do we find that lore in 2E?
Comic
I think
books.
it's somewhere. It's like in the Meet the Iconics. Also, if you look at the deep backgrounds chapter of the Game Mastery Guide, it actually has a picture of Sajam watching the victory procession of the other lord and his sister being like paraded out of here like no, and the thing about like motivations for how you became an adventurer.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to look that up. And then what was the other one? Who's my favorite host?
Lem the Bard. He burned down his brother's house.
Well, they just, who do you like more, me or Mark?
See, I feel like this is not a fair question.
It's not a fair question.
Because of
it's
the
not
fact
a fair
that he
question.
can give you so many perks.
I don't care. You can say either one.
Yeah,
but Mark's the guy who wrote your favorite game.
I think, and that's sorry, Trevor. Like, no shade, Steven, but I know a lot more of Mark's work directly and his designs.
There you go.
So when it comes to talking game design, it's been really interesting talking to one of the sources for the system that's really made my career, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, this was the last episode with no net on.
Bye, guys. I warned you ahead of time.
No. Hey, man, it's Mark and I, even just working with Mark, it's fascinating.
It really is. And who knows? Maybe my opinions will change after PaizoCon.
That's right. That's right. Know. I'm more fun. I promise you that. I've never hung out with Mark. That's not true. I've hung out with Mark. I've never hung out with Mark in extensive periods of time, but I promise you, I'm probably a little more fun.
All right. Well,
in a different way. Mark is not fun. Mark likes what he likes. He doesn't drink. He likes to teetotal. Do you like food, Mark? I've never gone fooding with you.
It's fun.
I like food that I like, but I don't like food that I don't like.
I know, but are you a vegetarian?
So I like what I like you said.
Are you a vegetarian? I forgot.
I am a vegetarian.
That's right. I thought you were. Man, so I am a carnivore.
So Steven likes meat.
Oh, man.
But do you also drink a lot of alcohol? Then
no, I actually don't drink. I'm not an alcohol. No. Actually, I don't drink any alcohol. I drink it socially, but I actually never, like at home, I have no alcohol. I mean, I drink Diet Coke like nobody's business, and lemonade, like two strange things, but I drink a lot of that. No, I never drink like no Nat's always drinking.
See, here's the thing. You won't catch me at like 11 p.m. by myself drinking.
Unless the camera's on. This is what No Nat does. He's like,
absolutely.
No Nat's like, it's 11 o'clock. I want to drink. Turn on the stream and then I can drink. There you go.
I will not pretend I haven't done that.
I told you. I know.
Drink tonight.
That's
I'll stream
right.
Wrath of the Righteous. Why not?
There you go. You're like, let's stream something. I want to drink tonight.
Mm-hmm.
You say, I don't, but I do like beer. Like, you know what it is? I like beer with certain types of foods. Like if I get fish and chips, beer is awesome. But like there's like anything, like certain types of drink taste better with certain types of food.
I've never had an alcoholic beverage that I like more than a soft drink. Like I will take lemonade over a hard seltzer. I'll take Diet Coke over a Long Island iced tea.
I see what you're saying, except for certain beers with certain foods like fish and chips, or sometimes hot dogs or hamburgers, or the meaty, like the pub food. I mean, there's a reason it's called pub food. Like pub food with beer really is. It's pretty good.
So
it's pretty good.
I think I'm with you on that though, Nonat, and I will tell something that Steven doesn't even know this particular story yet, which is that other than like being given small sips of things like many kids are, and it was like, this is gross. When I turned 21 on my 21st birthday, at my office where we were doing AI research at MIT, they decided they were going to get me a drink. And so they tried to find something that I would like, whereas I was like, I've tasted it, I don't like it. They're like, well, do you like cranberry juice? I was like, yeah, I like cranberry juice. They're like, we'll make you a Cape Codder.
So like a vodka cranberry?
Oh.
And so they did, and I was like, okay, this is worse cranberry.
It's just worse, yeah.
I drank some of it. I was like, yeah, this is worse cranberry juice. And it was not enough to have any noticeable effect. I tried to do things like balancing and walking and seeing if it was affected by this one partial drink and probably not. And then I've
No.
never drank any alcohol since.
Wow. Well, we'll have Nonat since he's going to be a PaizoCon. Make him a girl. What's it called? A Girl Scout?
Dirty Girl Scout.
Dirty Girl Scout. Which,
That's one of the interesting ones because there's not a lot of minty beverages that aren't alcoholic. So that's
was
those
like
are the alcoholics I do like.
I think is minty too.
I think the grasshopper. Yeah. What's in that?
But the Dirty Girl Scout. That sounds good. I'll tell you something else that you can get, which you can get at any like not distillery place whatever I forgot the distribution centers. They have hard root beer.
Oh, the Not Your Father's?
Yes, Not Your Father's root beer.
I love it.
First of all, it tastes like root beer. It's like like,
those are impressive.
Like if I give that to you, Mark, you would not know there's alcohol in it. Like it tastes great. It's actually the first time I actually tasted something and I was like, okay, this one is truly scary because it definitely has alcohol in it, but you can't taste it and it actually tastes like candy. It's so delicious.
That was Smirnoff Ice for me, where they just taste like liquid Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah. Or Goldschlager or what else is there? There's a couple of nasty ones out there.
So Mark, what was that about only going for an hour today?
Well, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop now. But once we get going,
Steven said before
hard.
the stream we're definitely only going.
Well, you
for
know
an
what?
hour
Because
today.
I
assumed it was about an hour and a half.
It's about an hour and a half.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. It's like right around an hour. We got up to 50. Like it was like we're at 20, and then boom. So I'm wondering if we need to start. Do we need to start the stream an hour later? Or is it that people just come in late?
From experience, it's just people coming in late.
Got it.
Because a lot of people will see a stream scheduled and never click on it. But if they see a stream is currently live, they will. That's why I almost never stream for less than 3 hours. Because around hour 1 or 2 is when I actually hit my peak.
Mark,
and that's why
we're streaming for 3 hours from now on, man.
That's why RK Mark has never really rarely gets a very high number of spontaneous viewers.
Yeah, the problem with 3 hours though,
just what you said, No Nats, and we often have our max viewers like right when we're ending. It'll just be like it'll be so sad because it'll be like, oh my gosh, we just got up to a certain amount, and it's like, but we're also
okay. How about this? Oh, we got 40 likes. If we get up to 50 likes in the next
hour, like very consistently, maybe on Saturdays if we're playing a game or something, we go over. But we're
we get 50 likes. I will do something. I will do something silly. 50 likes.
Ooh,
we're almost up there. 40.
Question?
Yeah, or you guys asked me a question anyhow. But you can see if we get up 50 likes. No, but what happens is that I watch a lot of live streams, but if they're more than, I see my limit is the ones I really like are 1.5 to 2 hours, and after that it gets kind of a little too long. If I see a live stream that's 4 hours, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to rewatch it. But I will rewatch a stream that's an hour to 2 hours, no problem. So that's why I like ours.
Live stream to begin with.
I can't get into watching live streams. I really can't.
I watch during the day.
I know Roll for Combat started as and still is a live stream podcast. I like playing. I'd happily be.
No, I'm talking about live stream anything. I didn't mean live stream RPG. I meant live stream.
Like I put on like 3-hour stream archives just to fall asleep to because I need some background noise. But I don't know. A live stream actually gives me like a weird anxiety. Like I feel like I need to be chatting. Otherwise, like why am I there? I can just watch it later.
I will say I did watch. So Derek is starting. What is it? The Quest for the Frozen Flame. Quest for the Frozen Flame. And I watched this episode 0. Actually, that looks like a fun one. I'm gonna probably watch that one.
We've only played one session. I'm really liking it so far. The way it's getting set up.
I want to. Unfortunately, that's the problem now. There's too many adventure. It always happens. Like it's gotten to the point. I'm looking at my adventure pass. I mean, heck, I haven't even played Abomination Bolts. And I want to play that one really bad.
I've played the first 2 sessions of that one, but nothing.
I guess wait for the hardcover, Steven, and then play it.
Some people don't need to wait.
Even I'll run it for you. We can do an actual play that I never watched.
Really?
But that I run.
Oh my god, I will so do that. It's so quick. And I have the hardcover, so I don't think you have to wait too far.
We need to wait until there's a time that we can responsibly
We'll never be able to do it, though. That's the problem. I know. We'll never be able to get it in.
Yeah, good luck finding 4 hours a week every week.
Well,
Hey,
my
you know
live
what?
streams aren't 4
Roll
hours.
for Combat is my job, so I can find it.
Oh, that's right.
To
Yeah,
be
well,
able
he can
to-
do it. Yeah, that's true.
We just
I
need
don't
to
have
be
the
able
time.
to
It doesn't
make
matter.
sure
I
that
don't
I
have
can
time.
get everything else done.
I don't have
while
time. It
doing
doesn't
them.
matter.
Yeah,
I mean, I got
don't
2
either.
games, and even I barely have time for 2 games now.
I have
Yeah.
3.5. It's rough. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every other Monday.
Did you intentionally do that so you would have 3.5 games?
No, not on purpose. No.
Well, I have 2 games. 2E. There you go.
There-
2 games of 2E.
There you go.
Mm.
I think every one of my games is different.
And
No,
here's
I
the
have two
funny part
2Es,
is I
but-
used to have 1 game of Starfinder, and then I had 2 games of Pathfinder. So there you go. So I have as many games as there are versions of each system. This is why I don't play 5E, because I can't do
You'd
5
have to have
games.
5 games.
I
and
can't
then
do
that would
5
be
games. It's too
much,
hard.
man.
It's too hard. Well, good thing I'm not playing like Call of Cthulhu, because what are they up to, like level like version
I think.
8?
Yeah.
That's 8. They have to do
You
8
could
games.
have 8 games. They just all get killed and like
I love Call of
their minds
Cthulhu
break
is
and they die
so much
instantly,
fun.
and then they're over.
I love Call of Cthulhu. That game is talking about a broken game. That game is broken, man.
On purpose,
Oh,
though.
and it's broken. But here's the thing: it's like everyone plays it knowing it's broken.
Mhm.
So it's
You
like,
know
okay,
you're
I'm
gonna
coming in
die.
knowing I'm gonna be horribly killed, and it.
Oh, look,
and
one of the adventure
everything's gonna.
paths.
It's so
one of-
bad.
One of their adventure descriptions mentions it takes place at Miskatonic University, so there's plenty of investigators to replace the ones that inevitably won't make it. It's like
Yeah.
in the adventure description.
Yeah, like everyone's gonna die. We're only up to 41 likes, but we gotta
Womp
go.
womp.
We got things to
There
do.
you go. So
Sorry,
Steven,
y'all.
you're not going to be put with your feet.
Not
to the
today.
fire.
Not
under fire
today.
today.
And then next week, Mark wasn't sure if we're doing a show. I think we'll probably do a show next week.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I just wasn't sure if you could because you're flying out or like
I'm
early
flying
on
Wednesday.
right?
I fly Wednesday,
Okay.
not Tuesday. And Wednesday, you know what? You know me. I've actually pretty much prepared. I'm one
Yeah, I
of those
guess that's
people
true.
who prepares way ahead of time. So
You're always awake at like 2 a.m. So I guess that there's a lot of waking hours after the stream and before your flight.
well, not only that, I'm kind of ready for PaizoCon.
Fair
So
enough.
I mean,
I gotta
that's
get-
a,
I'm
that-
not
done.
because I
Yeah.
need to finish writing that.
you have a lot.
adventure of
You
those
are
regents.
you are not ready. I am mostly ready to go. In fact, all I have to do is
Yeah.
get my equipment together, and that's kind of it. And actually, no, Nat, I want to talk to you later to
Mm-hmm.
see what equipment you're bringing, because I might bum some equipment off you.
I'm bringing.
Yeah, you think
this
I have
this
equipment.
camera.
Do you-
That's
do you
because
have a
want me to
laptop?
bring it
That's
in the
all I'm
back.
asking.
Yeah.
That's all I need. I might need a spare laptop because I only have 1 laptop. I used to have 2,
Yeah, I'll
but
bring
one
my
of them.
webcam at least.
Yeah, at least we're bring your webcam.
We'll all bring our cameras in case cameras break, so we
Yeah.
have lots of contingency
You'd be
plans.
surprised. I told you. I mean, I worked in corporate for a long time. I have stories that you can't believe. I'll give you a teaser of one. I've seen everything, and I mean everything. I was in a building, and we were trying to finish up a presentation for a Fortune 500 client. And of course, it's like 4 a.m. because, you know, I never, those days I never slept. I had to literally stay up until the presentation the next day to get it done. And we're trying to get this done. And then the building caught on fire. and we're like, really? You know, we have work to do. Can you hurry up and put the fire out at 4 a.m. so I can go back to work, please? I mean, it was the craziest thing.
That's wild.
I've also been locked in the building. I've had that happen to me. I had like
While it was
4
on
a.m.
fire?
What? Not while I was,
While
on,
it was
fire.
on fire.
Not while I was
It's
on
like the building
fire.
was on fire and Steven was locked in there and he was just working.
No, it was the
They
same
later,
client
the firefighters
though.
put out the fire and they just see Steven there working.
It was
to
the
where-
same.
type it
It
away.
was the same client. We were like at the same guy too. It's like 4 a.m. It's actually for PepsiCo, and we were working on something. And then we went across the street to get something from his office. His office was across the street from mine, and then we got locked in. And I'm like, oh man, how the hell we get? I don't remember how we got out. And it was like couldn't call someone. It was 4 a.m. Anyhow, I can tell you all these
Anywho.
stories at PaizoCon. I got endless
Yes,
stories.
and you would get more stories, but
we gotta
they didn't
go.
make it to 50, so they
No,
don't
we're
make
up
it
to
get
44. We're up to 44. We got 55 people watching. What is the excuse? No one
I
wants
mean,
to
not
do it.
everyone wants to put a thumbs
No
up.
one wants
Maybe
to like us.
They're worried that the algorithm will like recommend them more of these streams, and then they'll keep watching
Really?
all of them. and
This is
they'll
what
get
I want to
addicted.
watch. You don't want to
too
watch?
scared that if you get too popular, you won't be able to answer their messages in chat because it'll be too much.
Steven has a background in fires. No, I have a
Yes,
background.
Steven does have a background in fires.
I have a background. I am the living embodiment of jack of all trades.
He has a background in everything. We were talking about
Literally.
slide decks, and he was like, I have a background in slide decks. In fact, my very first job for 4 to 5
Yeah.
years was making slide decks.
That's what I did. Age 23, Macromind director, before I was Macromedia director. I created, and this is in 1993, I created interactive slide presentations for Fortune 500, mostly ad agencies.
And then at PepsiCo, he had another job, which was starting fires. Just made it
There
work
you
at
go.
4 a.m. in the morning.
You have to sneak into competing factories.
I
light a little
did.
thing.
You know, the thing about PepsiCo is funny. If you go there, and they're right down the street from me, is that the headquarters is that everything in there uses the Pepsi font. That is the ugliest font. Like, it's fine for Pepsi. Go right now and try to use. Hey, we got our visitor here. Go and use Pepsi font on every single thing in your office. Does not work very well. It ends up looking quite harsh, to say the least. I can see Coca-Cola. That would look nice everywhere. Or there'd be like the scripty writing everywhere. But yeah. And the funny thing is, of course, we did the joke because there's Pepsi machines everywhere and they're all free. And you're all like, then you go to the meeting and you bring out your Diet Coke and everyone looks at you and you're like, ha ha.
Wow, that's like my friend Chris at Microsoft who like uses iPads and iPads,
Apple products. Jeez.
Apple products, and like. There's definitely some company loyalists who he says.
What are you gonna do? Bring out the Zune? You bring out the Zune, like, oh, here we go. Here's my Zune.
And we asked him if he uses Bing, and he said that like
no one uses
Microsoft
Bing.
had a thing where like if you do a certain number of searches per day, you would like on Bing you would gain points and then you could get like merchandise or something like that. So he would always count how many searches he was doing and do that many on Bing and then immediately stop and switch to Google.
Yeah, I worked with Microsoft and they were very, very, very strict. You had to use all their products. And that was back when they were not so great. I mean, they had a product in everything and some of them were pretty crappy and you had to use them. Man, these bots love me. I'm going to fix that.
Username every time.
I know. I'm going to get rid of these bots once and for all.
Jeez.
It's this one person because it's clearly the same one.
Yeah, but they're all different accounts. They all say something.
No, I know. I'll put up the software. I didn't want to ban our real people. We're up to 47. All right, we got to go. But I'll be back here next week, and next week we'll try to get 50, and I will have the bots all taken care of. And we found out that breaking games is fun. Everyone break your game.
Breaking games is fun, but symmetry and asymmetry are part of what make it.
That's right. Symmetry and asymmetry. It makes it harder
on the GM, but it's worth it.
But just remember, if you really want to have a fun game, play Pathfinder 2nd Edition and add advantage and disadvantage. Bye, everyone.